What's up, everybody? It is Brandon Karen here, and today we're talking about how to find the best tenants for your rental property. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things that we do for our clients and even for myself. So one of the ways, obviously these are me talking about long-term tenants, and jumping right into it, I would say the best way to do it is obviously find a property manager, find a realtor that you know, like, and trust, because they will have the ability to put the property on MLS, which then allows other brokers, other realtors, in order to see the property and show that property so that they could get the best tenants for you. Now, when you're advertising it, obviously I recommend having professional photos. Whenever you hire a professional, whenever you hire a realtor, then they will generally hire a professional photographer and have professional photos taken. I see so many listings online where people just put up, honestly, flip phones photos. It looks like, you're like you had a camera from early 2000s on your phone and you took some photos, and they're either outdated, they're old photos. They also don't match the graphics of the new, newer MLS or newer whatever photo, whatever you call it, right? Pixels or whatever. Pixels are completely off, and it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look professional, because what that tells the renter is that this owner did not care enough in order to take proper photos or even hire the right professional. So if I were to live in this apartment, if I were to live in this townhouse or whatever type of building you're renting it at, then they will also treat me the same. I'm not going to get the care. I'm not going to get the money invested into the property. It just subconsciously tells people that. It's all about what you're not saying, but believe it or not, what you put out there says a lot about your property. So I would say make sure you hire somebody that is using modern marketing in order to market your property. So typically we'll do floor plans, we'll do professional photos, and sometimes for the right property, a Matterport is honestly recommended, because if the property is huge and you're targeting sort of out-of-state movers into the area, then a Matterport helps them understand, hey, my furniture piece can go here, my rug does fit in this room, or whatever, or this space could entertain X amount of people, that kind of thing, especially with military people or just corporate movers that's moving into the area, because they generally look online and they don't really have time in order to find a place. So the best thing to do is make sure you hire a professional that is using modern marketing materials in order to help get it marketed. And I would ask them, do they use a professional photographer, and that kind of thing. The other thing too that I highly recommend is using a property manager, or using some sort of screening service that does a property manager check. For instance, our property manager that we recommend, it's just, the client, the tenant, potential tenant, submits an application with them. It's about $55, and then they run the background check, they do the credit check, they pull their prior history and everything. But not only that, they also call their current landlord or prior landlord to ask questions. And they ask them things like, hey, was this client communicative? Was this client, did they trash the property? Did they pay on time? All these things all matter, especially when you're, renting to people. You want to know what their history is, because, actually recently we just got an application where their credit was not the best. However, their verification from their prior landlord was awesome. So, that allows us to kind of see a wholehearted picture of the person that's coming to the area. And we're able to make a decision and say, you know what, credit's not the best, but they do have great rental history, and this looks good. So, we recommend, yep, that looks good, and, we would definitely rent to them. So they'll get a whole picture, and the property manager really helps you. Ask your property manager if they physically call their prior landlord in order to find the best renter, and to get their history, because that could give you the entire picture. Maybe they just went through a divorce and their credit's not good, but they've paid on time all the time, that kind of thing. So hire a property manager or hire a professional to get the property on the market, because it gives you a lot of exposure as well. So when you put the property on the MLS, it gets more exposure. Versus if you're renting for rent by owner or whatever it may be, you're not going to get that much exposure, because most people are looking on Zillow. They're looking on Realtor.com. They're also using real estate agents or property managers to help them find a place. So definitely use somebody that can get it on that mainstream service platform, so that everyone can see your listing. One of the things we do too is we do a lot of Facebook marketing. So we'll upload the listing with the professional photos to Facebook Marketplace. We get a lot of inquiries. I will tell you about 80% of them we have to sift through because they're not really qualified or they're just like poking around, right? So make sure you be aware of that. I would say make sure you have time in order to manage the Facebook messages, because it's so easy for Facebook to send a message on Facebook, and like a lot of times people just don't really respond. So make sure that you hire a professional. Make sure you get it on the platforms if you can, and that way you're going to be set. The other thing too is, as you're reviewing the application, just take a deep dive into it and see, is it a good applicant? Like, are they going to be here for the length of time? And when are they moving away? That kind of thing. You also want to see if there's any clauses in there. So are there any clauses to say whether or not, for instance, like military people, they always have the clause that if for whatever reason they have to move away or get stationed, they just have to produce you with orders and then they can leave, which is fine. Like, because, it is what it is. Like, they're not going to be living here and the government ordered them to move away. So double check those things with them and say, hey, do you have any orders? That way you could at least be prepared. Not that you're not going to rent to them, but you can be prepared for when those situations do arise. Another way to make sure that you get great tenant is really just networking with people. So there are people in the area that have or know people that want to find a place. For instance, like if you live in a town and you network, you go to church and maybe find somebody at church, or you're involved in some kind of organization, talk to those people there, because generally they're going to know somebody, and subconsciously when somebody rents to someone that they know or someone that was referred to them, they want to make sure that they don't disappoint that person. So they will always be a good tenant for the most part. There are times when they're not, but for the most part they are looking for an option, and they're generally a good option, especially if they're in a certain situation. We actually received a call the other day from a friend of mine who was like looking for a friend of hers, and she's like, hey Brandon, can you help her out, because she is in a really tough situation and she needs to find a place. So those are sort of the things we do. We were able to set her up with an agent on our team, and then he is helping them find a place to rent. So again, it's all about who you know and network and talk to people, because that's how you're going to get the word of mouth out. Another thing too is, again, make sure you do a background check. Make sure you do a credit check. Credit check does give a history, and I honestly believe it's probably like one of the biggest things when you're selecting a tenant. Make sure that they have a good credit history, no major late payments. Like, they could have had, like I said, a divorce, and that kind of messed them up. But when you look at their mortgage, when you look at their credit cards, when you look at their car payments, like, are they paying those things on time? And I would say make sure that they are. The biggest thing too is making sure that they have their ducks in a row, that they submitted everything all at once versus like sending it willy-nilly, right? You want to make sure that you like you're getting everything together. It shows like a form of organization, and that they are really qualified and they're competent enough that if something happened to the property while they were living there, they were able to go ahead and produce those documents or really help you navigate through the fixing of that. So anyways, those are just some of the tips that we use in order to find great renters. I'm sure this video was helpful. Please hit that like button below, subscribe, comment. Let me know your thoughts of what you guys do to find great tenants, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.